Welcome to our convivial podcast, Adjunct of Computing.
I forgot the prop.
There's a prop?
Keep going.
Okay,
Keep going.
This is already off to a chaotic start, but I'm going to carry on solo. This is for episode 185 of Advent of Computing. Is emulation a form of flattery? An investigation into a really weird language and operating system that nobody has ever heard of before called emulate and emos, respectively, unless I said those the other way around when I first said that, in which case it's the other way around. And Sean has brought us the prop, which is a dog.
No, the prop is Tools for Conviviality. I'm finally reading it. And the dog, poor Publius Scipio saw me moving quickly and thought there must be something exciting in the office. So now he's piloting.
And he was right. He was right.
Perhaps.
Well, yeah. How's that going so far? What's your feeling on the book? Is it as good as you hoped?
It's as crazy as I hoped.
Good.
I'll review it when I'm done with it. It definitely feels like a Rosetta Stone kind of thing, just because of how much conviviality comes up in hypertext and early home computing. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised more people don't talk about this book, since it is...
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of this guy's name.
Neither had I. I hadn't either until I got really deep into this episode, but we should get into this episode.
There's a lot to dig into, and yes. I feel like we're not going to have time for any of it, as is the way. And we're probably going to get stuck in some of the loops that we always get stuck in. So let's just dive right in. So... as always, recap of the episode. What is emulate? Who is this guy, Bob Wallace? What is going on here? And why is it so absolutely fascinating?
Bob Wallace is just a cool dude, man. Like, I
that's all you need.
Show, and I'll say it again, but sometimes I run into people that I profile on the podcast where it's like, yeah, you're just really neat. I'd love to hang out with you. And Bob Wallace is definitely one of those dudes.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, and so the episode is really about me running into a set of odd papers, as many of my episodes start, and getting hooked, this time with MOS8 and Emulate, because the operating system runs a bunch of stuff. It's super compatible, and it runs this specific programming language that's described in the previous weird paper. And I just went from there. And it turns out the language especially is such a period piece and such because this is in the proceedings of the first West Coast Computer Fair, it's not academic. So the voice that Wallace and everyone in the proceedings is writing in isn't academic. So instead of being really stodgy and specific, he's literally like, oh, I really like Simula. So I took some ideas from Simula. Oh, I'm doing this Lisp stuff and this APL stuff. And you just don't usually get that in discourse about programming languages unless you're zooming way out or looking at really specific sources. So it's just neat. It's just really raw and candid and fun.
And that makes me think of, I feel like, we're going to talk a lot about this period. I mean, we already did when you started chatting with me about this next cool topic you were going to do off mic at the end of our last session.
It's hard not to.
Yeah, I mean,
I get
especially because I was also going to say, when a topic just falls out of your previous topic like that, man, that's always fun. But I would say almost an air of academic skepticism to a certain amount for some of this stuff in this period of, the early microcomputer revolution and people just coming up with stuff. And I don't mean that in the negative sense of knowledge is bad or whatnot. I mean, there's this a very big sense that I hadn't even thought about until this point of maybe even rebellious academia, or
completely rebellious. It's Lee Felsenstein, if I can speak, says that you have to understand the 60s counterculture to understand the roots of home computing. And he's exactly right. It's not that all countercultural people are computer people, but it's that a lot of home computer people are really deep in the counterculture scene. So you're exactly right when you say anti-academic. This is intentionally revolutionary. It's intentionally counter to the academic currents that gave us things like mainframe computers in the earlier periods of computing.
And also it's like intrinsically part of the conversation about that time and what's going on then in that prior to the microcomputer revolution. Like this is the whole thing, is that's a purely academic thing, or you're in business doing like, accounting.
It's all like industrial tooling. It's all very specific, there's a liberatory aspect to computing, but you have to either be in big industry or in big academia. You can't do it at home.
Now you've got people who are just at home and into it, coming up with their own stuff. And you've got the interesting academics, because it also trails over, I think, a little bit from, again, that rebellious late 60s going into the 70s academic side of things, like your Ted Nelson's, your
Andy Van Dam.
Sure.
Sure.
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think, why is it escaping me? The great demo guy, the mouse, the online system, Engelbart.
Now, Engelbart and Nelson, well, Engelbart especially, are from an earlier generation.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Is like they're kind of the end of one thing going into the start of the next thing.
Also, I now need to let Scipio out of my office because he decided, no, there actually isn't anything interesting here.
Such a shit. Scipio needs to live up to his name or something. His name sounds very fancy and very historical. He should be interested in very fancy historical things.
He's not. Scipio is only interested in fish, where is mother, bark at neighbors. That's it.
He's well balanced.
He has a hierarchy.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing too, that this is always the start, is just a billion ideas that I want to branch off of occur to me at the start, and we'll get to each of them. One is just that the reason that this is a great story too is listening to you talk about what is this story. This is one of those ones where like your description doesn't really describe anything, right? And it kind of describes, because
you can't.
Is it about the language? Is it about the operating system? Not really. You didn't really say anything about those things, and that's not a criticism. It's just highlights. This story is so much about the time and what's going on. And Joe, I'm glad we get the back half that goes into the language, but there are so many unanswered questions there.
I will defend myself with 2 points here.
Please.
3 points, really. One, both of these things, right? The operating system and the language, MOS and Emule, are paper designs. They're just theoretical. It's literally
much like
just
APL,
Bob Wallace.
which only occurred to me when I was
like
reviewing
APL.
the paper. You're writing right before this.
But yeah, it's very much just some ideas Bob Wallace had. So like, sure, we could talk more in detail about the language, but we kind of can only go up to a point. There's not a manual for it. There's no artifacts. There's just these 2 papers where he's like, I've been working on some things.
Well, there's a thing that wasn't clear. So there's a great topic for this after show type thing is, so are you not sure if this was ever even actually implemented?
I don't think it was implemented, because in the papers he says, I might get around to it this summer, and that summer he got hired to work at Microsoft.
That's when he got hired at Microsoft.
Yeah, so I don't think he ever actually got back to it. Or if he did, there's like no paper trail I can find.
That is such a bummer, but also it's great that he was sitting here putting down these weird ideas he was having.
Yeah, the second point I'll defend myself with, and I know you agree with me, is the story is so much more interesting than the details.
Yes.
Because I can talk about the syntax. It's weird. There are number signs in front of a bunch of statements for some reason. There's like deferred execution and pointers. But that's not as interesting as like the subtle blending of ideas that lead to the language.
The why is it like that?
Yeah, why is it like this?
It's like that. I can tell you it's like that. It's going to take me a couple minutes to tell you the concepts it has. But friggin' why, dude? And how does it get there?
I don't know why he has the pound signs in front of everything. Don't look at the code. It's not, like I'm saying, that's not the important thing. It is the story. And point 3, to Rosetta. I know I already used the term Rosetta Stone for this thing. Tools for conviviality. But these papers, as I was going into them, became less interesting as like the concrete article, right? And more interesting as an entry point into talking about the period. And for me, it kind of helped the whole idea of the connection to the counterculture and the connection to new ideas about computing and new ideas about relationship to power and how that actually appears in software and thinking about software.
Yeah.
Which that's more interesting than why did he put pound signs in front of stuff or like there's tabs. Why are there tabs? That's kind of weird for the period.
Sure. We will get there directly to the things I have to say about the counterculture and whatnot and the signs of the times. But before we get there, I do want to just kind of go into some of the technical things that stand out to me about Emulate and Emos.
Are you going to say modularity? Because that is cool.
I mean, clearly that's a big thing here, and it is in my notes. The first thing I've got here is more largely, and okay, this is one that may be good for later. Maybe we will come back to it. But just as an aside, it always amazes me how late shared libraries become a thing.
So that's complicated.
And it's complicated because some things are, like RSX it has its modular system, which is kind of like shared libraries. And there's also like
really, really early programming languages. I'm going to be wrong, I bet. But really early languages like compiler systems will use linker loaders. So you have a concept of shared libraries and you can do things like shared libraries, but they're not runtime per se.
Right, they're not dynamic. And it just now occurs to me that's why I say like this is good for later to dig into more technical stuff where I want to like right now stay on just emos things. It stands out to me, and it also just now occurs to me, what makes sense that hadn't before is until you have to start caring about like multiple process spaces, that kind of dynamic shared loading doesn't really look any different than basically a static library, right? But
anyway, you're dealing with interactivity. Like the idea of dynamic software doesn't make sense in the same way, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's interesting.
But more on topic with the talking particularly about the technicalities that are not as important to the story as the story itself, but I'm going to do it anyway about Emulate and Emos. What it really reminds me of in the modularity end of things is Oberon, because I've been messing with that lately. And Oberon is later.
Tell me how. Tell me how it reminds you, because I don't understand Oberon.
So Oberon is actually like pretty straightforward. It's basically Pascal with some kind of sort of object-oriented stuff in it, in that like it's
another like language and operating system pairing.
That is the thing about Oberon. And there's just this running history. It's not the topic of here, so I won't dig into it too much, but of Nicholas Wirth just trying to constantly, he doesn't like Algol or where Algol is going, so he makes his own simplified version of things that can actually be friggin' implemented and comes up with Pascal. And then from there, it's just this kind of history of him refining that. And like a big one is him just trying to make like a really efficient compiler and making a language that makes for a really efficient compiler. So Oberon is actually a pretty simple language.
Okay. I should learn about Oberon.
It's interesting. I don't think it's worth getting into, except maybe as an overall story about Nicholas Wirth and that whole thing. But so the reason why it stands out to me, besides the fact that it's one of the things that I had been messing with most recently, is firstly modules. And I want to know some history on modules. That's just, I would like to. I don't have history on modules. I would like to know more. But aside from even shared libraries, like
I think figuring out where you'd start, that would be difficult. But yes. Agreed.
Well, I think also because it's so nebulous, right?
Yeah.
Like you were just saying about shared libraries, like where they become modules as opposed to just
a segment of your like punch card deck different than a module, and where are they the same?
Right. And it's more conceptual than it is a physical reality too for a lot of this.
But a lot of times that conceptual stuff you can't actually find like origins.
Right. Or like when people start using the term for it or And but with Oberon, your modules are, you compile a compilation unit, a file, it turns into a module. I don't know how that's represented like as a file, but Oberon then also has, let's see, I have the note here for what Emos calls it, the global name list, right?
Oh yeah.
Oberon has, I can't remember what they call it or if there's a name for it, but it has a global name list. It's when you compile a module, that module exists in the system. And if you want to call a function that's in that module, once it's built, it's registered in the system, and you just write, module.method and run it, which sounds incredibly similar. And Oberon was later, so that also makes this fun. Because Oberon's like 80s, like mid to late 80s, really. But also, we'll get into it, but the text editor for programmers aspect of a lot of things. Just let that live in the back of your head for a second. We will skip right past
love to edit text. It's neat.
They love to edit text.
Programmers be typing,
Programmers be typing, and they think it's what computers are for. That's where I'll leave you.
If the world's made out of nails, you're gonna think it's meant for hammering.
I fully agree, and I think it's a topic rich for plumbing that is relevant to some.
There's a reason Emacs can do everything.
That is, it's a great operating system, but it's kind of a heavy text editor. The last thing I have to say about like emulate pulpery is this is good for a last one because you're going to be like, eh. My question is emulate the PowerShell or new shell from the 70s? And I ask that because of the chaining of results and whatnot, and the chaining of more complex things than just like,
that's just Unix
character streams.
Hey, if you use awk or Perl or, okay, fine. If you use Perl like an adult that uses Unix should, then you can do anything with a one-liner. Well,
this is the Unix thing, right? Is I will concede, because that I don't think you're a PowerShell person. But
I've opened PowerShell the aspect and been like, oh God, close it. I don't know what this is. I'm lost.
I have a soft spot for PowerShell, but the main thing is it's a .NET language, and its big thing here that I'm referencing is that you pipe stuff just like in Unix, but you're piping structured .NET objects between .NET commandlets. But totally reasonably, Unix world, it places no constrictions on your data, right? So you could pipe JSON from one thing to another, and I think that's kind of basically what new shell does.
The tool is called JQ for parsing and extracting JSON data.
I am aware. I don't really use it, but
I use that more than I'd like to admit. I'm definitely one of those fellas that will do a one-liner and spend way too much time doing that when I should have written like a short script and it would have been done in 5 minutes. It's like, no, I'll have this bash line that has Perl and awk and sed and JQ in it, and it'll have like 4 languages, but it will execute. It will count the number of emails that are embedded in this like Git log or something useless.
No, I'm a .NET guy, so literally the same thing, but PowerShell and
good,
because I'm trapped in Windows, and convert to JSON and convert from JSON, because PowerShell has those built-ins too.
That's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah,
I've been tripping all over myself for a while because at work we use MacBooks, but all our Docker VMs are like running normal Linux, like a normal human should use. And the differences between Bash and ZSH always cause headaches.
My trick is I've decided to never learn any one shell well enough to care.
That's a bad trick.
Just be bad at all of them.
I just write so much Bash, and then I can't even remember what it is, but I'll like execute a Bash line, it just won't work, and I'll be like, what's going on? I don't know where I am. I need back into my container. Help. No,
that really does annoy the living heck out of me. Back on topic. So those are my pulperies for the topic at hand. And it's actually the next thing, so we can go into it. I wrote it down as the great and honored path of programmers making operating systems that are real good for doing their job. And by their job, I mean the programmer's job.
Yeah.
So Oberon is like that, and that's the other reason I bring up Oberon is when you talk about emulate and the fact that what he's describing as this system where you've got your output in one window and you've got your development in the other window. In some ways, it also reminds me of like Lisp machines, like symbolic stuff and things like that.
Yeah, I was really tempted to talk about that on the show, but I don't know enough about symbolics, and I've been saving that for like.
You got to reach out to Tron. I'm not like buddies with him, but he's the guy, and he's cool.
I'll add it to my email list.
I think he's in Seattle, so he's not terribly far away from me.
Seattle's pretty far away from me, dude.
I mean, in the scheme of things,
it's like a 12-hour
let's not get into this again,
Joe.
Yes, but it's not a 4-hour
Northwest
flight.
is like Texas. It's huge and not barren, but takes forever to drive anywhere.
Goddamn Oregon sitting in there. But yeah, anyway, I love that because you get programmers are the people who make operating systems, right? And especially in like early operating system history, you got your Unix, you got your you nailed it exactly what I was going to talk about, bringing up Emacs, because Emacs is like,
yes, the classic system.
Mean, it's Richard Stallman. I mean, not that he invented Emacs, but like modern GNU Emacs in that scene is 100%. I just want to make a system that's really good for making the system, you know? And like that happens so often, and it's not really useful for things that literally anyone else would use a computer for, but it's awesome for programmers.
Putting my business hat on for a minute, like an absolute crazy person. I think this is why product managers exist, is because if you have, like if you have someone who's good at product, like looking at you doing this, they're going to be like, and what is this useful for? And you'll be like, it's nice for programming. And they'll just be like, that's not an answer. Like, what
yes, we need that for making the thing, but what is the thing we are making?
No, MOS8 is really good for writing emulate. And what do you do that for? Well, all of the code in MOS8 is written in emulate, so it's good at maintaining itself. It's like, yes.
I mean, it doesn't bear getting into, but that's also Holy C and the name of the operating system is escaping me now.
Temple OS.
Temple OS. Very like similar mood on that one, as far as it's an operating system built for writing the operating system.
And Unix early on.
Yes, that was
an operating system.
Implicit, I think.
Yeah. It's the Ouroboros, but eventually people realize C is useful, so Unix becomes useful.
That is kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
Oberon 2. That's, again, just because I have to mention Oberon, so I should at least give some context on that.
Maybe I should read like a Wikipedia article about Oberon one day.
Yeah, Oberon's, I'd say like its three main points are being a modular system, like being a modular language, and the module system kind of makes up part of what gives the operating system its flavor, and being an operating system that's built around the language. And also this weird paradigm where everything is text, like the whole thing is a text UI, but it's run by the mouse. Have you, because you talk about Alan Kay, Alto, Smalltalk. You talk about Smalltalk a bit in the episode, and Smalltalk has a similar thing going on where, have you ever actually like sat down and used Smalltalk or played with it?
No, not enough to know about it.
Okay, because I was going to say, are you familiar with the
Smalltalk very much?
In Smalltalk, one of the things is you like highlight and do a specific mouse click or command key to just execute a line of Smalltalk and make it happen. And that's kind of
Mathematica does the same thing. So I
because that came down from a lot of stuff, and Oberon was kind of the thing that started.
Interesting.
That. But so that's the thing, is that Oberon is really good for writing Oberon, and that's...
So Joe, I think I'm not going to read anything about Oberon, and I'm just going to believe everything you tell me about Oberon.
You should. I've used it on my Atari ST for approximately a week and a half.
That sounds hilarious.
I'm an expert.
Actually. All right.
Anyway, so I will resolve to never talk about Oberon ever again in this episode. And we're moving on.
Next episode, all Oberon for hours.
Okay, let's get into the good meat of this thing, getting out of the technicalities, and let's talk the counterculture, the conviviality. I can't remember if I did a section for conviviality for us to come back to. I don't think I did in particular.
It's such a lame word. Like I get why it's a thing. That's just such a lame word.
I do like, since every episode I have to have just a callback to something you said without it really being a topic of conversation. Just the snark at, yeah, he coined conviviality.
Yeah.
Only because I fully agree. I cannot stand when they're like, they coined using a word that already uses its own meaning for a thing that it means.
Conjugation. It's even worse, the long explanation, because if you read Tools for Conviviality, in the introduction, Illich explains, like, it's something about the French versus the Spanish cognate of convivial. And it's like, okay, dude, like, you can just say you like the word because it's close to what you mean and then redefine it. Like, that's fine. You know?
Yeah, but
you don't have to go that far.
But going up your own butt about it is so much more fun.
It is. I've been enjoying reading the book. It's crazy.
And I also don't think you get a book out of it without someone who thinks that way.
No,
you know?
No, of course not. Like that.
Otherwise, you just be like, computers should be like really interactive for making stuff.
Yeah, that's a sticky note. We need people that are a little bit out of their noggin. And like, that's the other thing. This book has nothing to do with computers. That's why it's like a crazy Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say a certain part of like history getting done is people just like saying out loud and verbosely the like obvious thing sometimes.
Oh, completely.
Which, yeah. And I feel like conviviality, it kind of captures something that's just implicit in the zeitgeist of, you know, computer usage at the time and where it's going.
I swear we were going somewhere, but I lost the thread.
We weren't really. I was diving into personalities and culture of the 70s micro scene, as I have it written down.
Crazy
firstly, we can chat about
dudes.
Bob Wallace in general, just as a character.
So,
and I mean, you can put it all in here, the Arrowhead thing,
here's a fun story. I found out about Bob Wallace because of just these articles. Mm-hmm. And it took me forever to find information on him. And eventually I did find his obituary on arrowhead.org. And I'm like, well, I know some people that really like drugs. And so
You're from California, you say?
Well, who knows?
I never, I learned the term Cali sober from when my friends moved out to LA.
I'm so sorry you were exposed to that, Joe.
No, don't worry. These are already my people. We're hippie weirdos.
So I sent the URL to one of my buddies who I know who is a drug aficionado. And I'm like, do you know who Bob Wallace is? And she's like, oh yeah, I know all about Bob. And I'm like, what do you mean you know all about Bob?
Don't you love when somebody just has a foot in two completely insane camps? And
yes.
Like when those like those two things do not ven in any reasonable way, you know?
Well, the thing is with Wallace, they like do intersect because
they do for him. But I'm saying like you've got
in general though,
you've got the Arrowhead people who know Bob Wallace, and you've got the microcomputer people that know Bob Wallace. You have
the Microsoft people that know Bob Wallace because he was an early Microsoft employee. Right. So a lot of the information about him is about how cool he was with Microsoft.
Did you? I think you said in the episode how long he was there. It wasn't long, right?
He was there for a couple years. Okay, and then he founds his own company, which I should do an episode about shareware because he invents the concept of shareware. Supposedly, I haven't done my research, but he's the one who's attributed with inventing shareware.
Fair
Again,
enough.
the diagram just overlaps because it's not about computers necessarily with Wallace. It's about freedom and, dare I say, conviviality.
It comes around.
Conviviality. It's about like freedom and self-expression, and it's about doing that in a safe and productive way. So that's the through line. He just happened to have been on a computer bent for a while.
And that's, I mean, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, is kind of this whole aspect of the microcomputer scene, going from the late 60s, where it's not so much microcomputers as much as people like getting access to time sharing systems, into the early 70s where people actually have computers.
Begging, borrowing, and stealing access to timeshare systems.
Yeah. But where you're thinking of the computer as a mode of expression. You know, that's where
There's a
conviviality
word for
plays
that.
in.
Yes, that's the word.
But, you know, I feel like that's what all that time period that the undercurrent is about, you know, new modes of self-expression and new modes of self-empowerment. And the computer is an incredibly underrated thing for that I think we don't really think of, unless you're a weird computer person, like potentially us. I know me. I mean, we've talked about this before, like talking about programming as an art.
Oh yeah,
and as you know, like a form of self-expression.
Well, it's more an art than a science.
It really is.
It's like jazz. There's more than one way to say something in programming.
And that's why I think this is one of the reasons I like a character like Bob Wallace so much as a person is I recognize a thing where I can see he's into this for I want to make a cool thing in this way. I've got a vision for how I play this solo, right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, he totally has a vision, and you can see it in these papers, which is really, really neat. It's really compelling to me.
Yeah, it's watching someone riff, you know?
And it's something that I think for home computing could have only happened in this period.
Yes.
Part of, I'll tap the sign, part of the thesis and tools for conviviality is that all technologies have two watershed moments. They have one moment where they become useful and are a useful tool for human expression. They're convivial, right? Then if they get co-opted by industry, they hit another watershed where they stop being convivial and I think the phrase Illich uses is their disutility outweighs their utility, which is hot air.
But also I hear something in that like is kind of brutal. I feel like I immediately know what he means in that, like, you stop doing cool, interesting things with them and you start.
That's why he coined the term conviviality. Is because there's not like a good word to describe it succinctly in English, I don't think. Because it is very much like you become a slave to the tool instead of freed by the tool.
Sure.
And computers, like if we're talking about home computers, Watershed 1 is like probably around 1972 to 1974. And then Watershed 2 is probably like whenever your mom got an email address.
I think that's fair. I think there's got to be an earlier thing to that. The thing that it immediately brings to mind is just my constant, I don't know, amazement and frustration at, I'll just boil it down to just inventing the CRUD app over and over and over and over again.
Yes. You always have to do CRUD with auth. And you have to do RBAC if you do CRUD. And if you do RBAC, you have to have a way to reset passwords.
And everybody is going to like write a set of tools at some point to make a framework for doing this because it's the thing we always do. And then those are going to proliferate. And then those are going to be what people know. And then somebody's going to be like, I feel like I can do this a better, different way. And like no knowledge is created in the process, you know?
Yeah, that is entirely, it's non-convivial. That's after the second watershed.
Yes.
Read the book, go crazy, lose your marbles.
And I'd like to say for the record, I am a huge advocate of doing things for no reason whatsoever. That is different. Though.
That's self-expression. That's freedom.
That is freedom.
Than writing CRUD apps.
It is not being locked in by the machine. And only writing things because you need only reinventing the wheel because you need to reinvent the wheel because reinventing the wheel keeps you in a job.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we could have a whole deep hippie ass conversation about the way corporatism and we live in a society and
modes of production. We should move on for our own safety.
For our own safety before we lose
views expressed
the people
by
we
me
do have.
Are not the views of my employer.
Oh boy. I'll say I thought this was an interesting thing to dive into too. So Northwest Computer Club, firstly, it's kind of cool to I get the impression very much that it's just this small thing.
It's just a crew hanging out in Seattle.
Yeah.
But it's big enough that they have event space, which is cool.
Right. It sits in a really interesting space of like, of course, it's not going to have much history, but there was some size to it, but there's not going to be, as you always are fond of using the word, lot of artifacts about it, even though it's definitely like a thing that had a footprint.
Well, I found like 5 or 6 scans of their newsletter, and like that's it. And I know I mentioned on the show how hard it is to find newsletters. I actually have in my pile of stuff to scan some old ACM the Bit Dropper newsletters.
Look, man, if it's not ACM, it's not Sean.
If it's not ACM, it's not computing or machinery.
Dang. Shots fired at anybody who thinks they do computing.
Newsletters are so important as a source because like I was saying about these articles and proceeding of the West Coast Computer Fair, they're raw. They're not doctored up. They're not gussied up very much.
Yeah, I picture it more like a zine. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like reading someone's
It's punk
zine.
rock for computers.
Yes. And in that kind of punk rock, you're going to find stuff that's a lot more, that's not necessarily being preserved in traditional histories, hasn't been talked about in systemic ways, and hasn't really been researched. The reason I only have like one of these, the Bit Droppers, I'm on the hunt for more, is because I ran into Stop and Catch Fire, or Halt and Catch Fire.
Halt and Catch Fire.
That joke came from a text template meme that started circulation, I think, in newsletters in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I remember I really enjoyed that episode, and I remember
yes.
nothing else about it, unfortunately.
Well, that's like the heart of the story, is it's this text meme that's just copy pasted, and every time it's copied and pasted like a chain letter, it says this is from blank. And the earliest one I can find says this is from ACM the Bit Dropper, and it doesn't say which edition. And I've only been able to find like 1 or 2 scans, and they come up on eBay every once in a while. So I have a saved search, and I'm like throwing a couple bucks at the problem to try and find the newsletter with the original meme, because I think that'll be funny. But
good luck.
Yeah, to no avail. Listener, if you have a box of ACM the Bit Dropper newsletters,
there's
get in
a
touch.
person out there.
Well, there is, and like that's the thing. If someone has these newsletters because they were involved or a family member was involved, and they're like, oh, that was really neat, but they haven't been archived because they don't, to a lot of people, they wouldn't seem important. They're very ephemeral.
I was going to say, and or someone has them and they have no freaking clue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add on to all of that is my observation is just that I always come back to it. It's that the years move fast. The years move slow and the days move fast. History.
Exactly.
And that, like, it's just so interesting to think about that this was a thing that somebody like put time and effort into writing. Bob Wallace's, the Northwest Computer Fair's, Club's newsletter. Spent so much time doing it, but like in the scheme of things, it's just this blip and then it's gone. And it almost basically doesn't exist anymore. Much like this podcast is going to be in about, I'm
putting it on vinyl. It's going to be preserved.
I've always said I need to put something on vinyl. So if you're saying so, then I guess this will be the thing. I thought it would be music, funny. But that would be excellent too.
Oh, I found this really retro vinyl. What is it? Huh? It's an after show about a computer history podcast? I have no context for this.
Is spoken word vinyl a thing that anybody has done right now? Because that historically, yes, of course. Yes. Of course. But like right now, like modern hipster vinyl,
it's gotta be.
There's gotta be. If nobody, I need to find out if somebody's put a podcast on vinyl.
I'm sure someone has.
I'm sure someone has, so I have to find it.
Some beautiful vinyl in my collection that's a JFK assassination documentary on vinyl. It's crazy. I still remember record shop, and the guy's like, "Oh, that's really cool. What in the world is that?"
This is just getting into Sean and Joe talk about
weird
starting to get old territory. I remember I was just talking to somebody about this recently, and apparently they don't remember this, but I remember in the 90s still having like portable record player in the classroom where they would sometimes put on like an educational thing.
That's neat.
Yeah. It was elementary school and it was really weird. Yeah.
Maybe we should start a new podcast about educational material pressed on vinyl.
Probably. That
It'll
seems
probably
like
be
such a
fascinating.
rich vein to plumb.
Yeah, maybe.
And we seem like people with so much time on our hands, you know? Yeah. I want to say this. Here's a good point of contrast between then and now. So I just wrote down tripping on acid, which is, it seems rad when you're talking about, you know, a Bob Wallace or those
Being
people
in
doing
college,
it and like coming up with
tripping on
ideas.
acid, writing software that Ted Nelson personally dislikes.
A great line.
Powerful. That would be insane.
And so that's very of the time and makes sense, right? And seems like, yeah, that's cool. Like, again, rock star punk rock computer
Rock
guys.
on.
And then
Keep on rocking, fella.
why does tech bro microdosing seem so lame in comparison? That's all I have to ask.
It's
like it took something that was cool and made it into something that's like,
Joe.
I don't know. It's the grind set aspect of it.
It's the second watershed. It all goes back to conviviality.
I'm going to propose that there's a third watershed here because there was the corporate part of this, and then there's the whatever the tech bro thing is, which is corporatism, like faux non-corporate corporatism.
The horrific post-industrial state. Microdosing.
Oh my God. Is it postmodern corporatism? I think it's postmodern corporatism is why microdosing is not as cool as dropping acid and writing emulate. That's all. That's all for that one.
In order to increase shareholder profits, I'm going to meditate 5 minutes a day and microdose acid because it makes me more productive at my desk job.
Combining two things to create something that is worse than the sum of its parts.
Oh my God.
Also, let's talk about
consumer capitalism.
I'm going to fast forward to, because we talked about it a little bit and it just felt so obvious to me and I felt silly, but just talking about, I think it's that Steve Jobs has kind of faded in the last, like I'd say the last decade. I just feel like his presence isn't as felt in the zeitgeist anymore.
Yeah.
Because I just forgot what a representative of that period of computers are going to be a revolutionary thing and the hippie kids are making it happen thing Steve Jobs was. And this isn't to say particularly like Steve Jobs has a great relevance to this or is maybe even that important to this scene besides being
there,
the poster child of it almost. But there's just something there where like, I don't know. I don't know how I forgot that like that used to be part of the conversation when we talk about, you know, computers becoming cool and a useful thing for the people and whatnot. Joe, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like we don't talk about that part of it like just as an assumed part of the
like sitting in your office this week and you're just like staring into space and you're just like, oh my God, Steve Jobs existed. Oh no.
A little bit. I literally said this to my wife earlier, and this should probably go to show what a lame person I am. But I turned to my wife and I said, you know, it's a really weird thing. And God bless my wife for like even humoring this conversation. But I was just like, a really disturbing fact is that I think I miss Steve Jobs.
Oh, you shouldn't miss Steve Jobs. He did some awful things.
You should not miss Steve Jobs. That's the point. That is my point. We're getting too deep into the way things are now. We should be talking. I mean, it's a good contrast point.
We don't live in a society. We live in a podcast right now. We got to keep moving.
We do. So just that. I don't know if we have a lot more to say, but clearly such a deep part of this episode. It's kind of what this episode is about. And there's a lot more to say, I'm sure, that we'll talk about in the future about this period of hippie computer creativity. I have a note in here, but I don't know if we even have time to talk about it. That
we have all the time in the world, Joe. No one can stop us.
You've limited me to an hour. We can't be longer than the main podcast.
I didn't limit you. I said it would be weird if this were longer than the main show.
And to be fair, it's already weird. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're past that goalpost already.
All right. What do you got? What's the digression?
People trying to connect at a time when the technology for real mass communication is just being birthed.
Oh, you're talking about community memory.
I mean, community memory is, I mean, it makes sense for you to go straight there because that really is again, if I'm going to use a word too much, poster child of exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, speaking of that, coming out of the 60s, going into the 70s, before even personal computers are a thing, there's Lee Felsenstein trying to, side character in this very episode, trying to bring computers as a form of communication to people. Back when I'm not going to dive back into it. I'm just going to say back when we had bright-eyed, bushy-tailed ideas about that being a great idea. And I think there are aspects to where it is a good idea, but it is interesting because, it's almost not worth talking about because it's such an obvious point, but computers and more broadly, the networking technology that computers tap into, the infrastructure really, becoming this medium that has never existed before for being able to broadcast to everyone, everywhere, or many people at a time, or one to many, many to one. All of these weird ways of communicating that just didn't exist before, and how well that ties into the counterculture.
Yeah, and into having complete freedom of expression.
Yes.
It's like going back to the newsletters. One of the things that's really neat about the actual volume proceedings of the West Coast Computer Fair, all of them, whichever edition you read, is that when they started the West Coast Computer Fair, they always planned to issue a proceedings volume that would be printed and sold for like however much it cost to print, because they wanted to have a record of what went on and a way to disseminate information about what was going on in the scene.
Right.
And so that's survived. I have a bunch on my shelf right there. They're in bright colors, bright-ish.
Sick.
They look good as hell, right? But that survived because it was a very intentional, we're going to do mass communication. They had to work at it. These newsletters that are filling a similar like niche, right? Where we're doing mass communication amongst the homies that are all subscribed to the newsletter. They didn't survive because there's like a different scale, a different kind of intentionality. But now, once computers enter into the picture, you don't have to have that same intentionality or investment or scale. You can just do it. So there's email threads even going back to like the 80s, I want to say, earlier than that you can find
you just
archived
publish
online.
it and it goes from there to here, and now it's on several people's drives.
And it's somewhere on the internet forever. Like you can find Usenet posts that still exist. You can go read them because they're completely preserved and they can be transmitted like through a temporal access that a newsletter normally wouldn't have unless you do the West Coast Computer Fair thing and bind it and print it in mass.
Do you not love? I feel like this happens to retro enthusiasts possibly more than anybody else. I just have this vibe. Do you not love when you do a search for some technical problem you're having, especially with something that's massively out of date, and it's a Usenet post on Google Groups or something?
Yeah, on one of the archive
where it's
services.
been archived there. Yeah. And it's never, sometimes it's useful, but usually it just ends up being interesting.
Yes.
Like, because it's just dudes chatting. I think Usenet historically is really cool. I would love to
agree. Very much so.
I wish it were a thing that I could like interact with in this day and age. But failing that, it is such a historic, interesting time capsule, man. It's so good.
That's why I'm always freaking out about newsletters, Joe, because I want that, but
it's that information before you had that, right?
Yeah, before you have, like you were saying, before you hit the point where you have really good digital communication.
Right.
Yeah, it's just almost there. It's
is
rotting away in someone's closet.
And it's deeply ironic. It really is. I mean, just for the reasons mentioned, it's they're talking about the medium that will save them in a way that will not be preserved. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we've stopped cutting down trees and making paper.
Well, and that's what makes it so interesting, right? Is that it is not preserved, so there's a mystery there.
The mystery is the best part.
The
It's probably
mystery
better
really
than
is
even
the best
finding
part.
the thing.
Yeah, I mean, once I find the Halt and Catch Fire meme, I'm just going to be like, oh, here's the screenshot. Look at this high-res scan. Hee hee ha ha. It was made by Josh. And then that's the termination of the thought. But until then, it's still in my head. Like, oh, is it in this newsletter? Maybe it's in a different one. Who knows?
The fun is in the hunt.
It really is.
Okay. New topic.
Yes.
Let's talk back on the technicalities.
Oh, yeah. It can
Programming
run on
language.
8080 or anything. Why not? Who
Sure.
knows?
Programming language inspiration. Because I like that
Yes.
too. There's a cool story in here that, again, it's more social than technical. And it's... Let me introduce it this way because this has been on my mind and it's relevant. I finally looked at some Hopple stuff a while back.
Oh, good. Good man.
Because you're
you
always...
gotta.
I,
It's great.
I want to be clear. I should not be lauded for this because, like, I poked at the Hopple page and poked around. And that was the extent of it. And it seems, I mean, I don't want to say it seems really cool. It obviously is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I
You should
need
read
more
all of
time.
it.
I have too many things to read, but it's something that I would love to get more into.
It's light reading while you're going to bed. Just be in bed with your nightcap and the light on, just reading Hopple.
How do you know about my nightcap? Anyway, the thing that
at
I
a certain age, right?
the thing that I love is the chart that now I've forgotten about. You probably know it off the top of your head, but the big chart that whoever made of like the genealogy of programming languages.
Yes.
I think you've talked about it before now that I've thought about it.
No, I
just haven't
talk
put
about
two
those
and-
family trees a lot. They live rent free in my head. In the bound versions of Hopple, those are the is it the liner where you open the cover and it's the paper? from
Yeah,
the cover to
the
the
end
zeroth
pages.
page. Yeah, the end pages are
Or end
the
papers.
chart of the programming like family tree.
Excellent.
Really cool.
But it's so messed up, that tree. It's just the fattest, shortest tree you've ever seen.
I have capital O opinions about that kind of genealogy on programming language.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of the best you can do is I think why it leads me into this, because let me say this, without even looking at that chart, the thing that springs to my mind that seems obvious to my brain about programming language lineage is just that you have a couple of original ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like everything else is a riff and a remix. I don't want to say everything else, but it's just like the real, whenever anybody wants to make a fresh programming language, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like you know this scene, especially like you're an OS dev. You were historically an OS dev person.
There's
so that's
wrong with me. Yes, I understand, Joe.
But
You
like
don't
that's
have to
the
rub it in.
No, don't worry. I got the same problem. It's good. But that scene of people, these are the same people who want to write their own language, right? Same people. And it's always because I see these features. I think they're really good. I think everything else about this language is crap and should be dropped. Mm-hmm. And it's so rarely about like, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It's just, if you've ever heard somebody talk about wanting to make a new language, that's what it is I want to take the good parts from this and the good parts from that and put them together. And that's the new idea. It's not that I have a revolutionary idea about how you do things. It's that I like these ergonomics and those ergonomics. And I think they'd be better this way.
There are also incidences of people doing it on their own and like going way off the rails. But yeah, what always gets me about family trees, and this is the example I always use, is that Lisp was influenced by Fortran. Lisp was very heavily influenced because McCarthy did not like Fortran and really, really hated it. Seriously, if you go read the earliest papers on Lisp, he's like, Fortran's wrong. This FLPL, this one library for doing lists in Fortran, horrific. I'm going to make something completely different than that. That's an influence.
That's an influence.
That's, if you see a chart, there's not a line between Fortran and Lisp, even though there's a very strong emotional influence. The negative space is as important as what you put there, right?
But yeah, that's why I go back to it's APL makes me think about this. I think because there's a contrast there. APL seems like such an original idea, and that it's so early, like your Lisp, like your Fortran. Again, like your Algo's an interesting one because it's almost like the ideas of languages have already kind of been had initially, and then Algol is kind of like the whoa, slow down, let's come together on this, and like let's pick and choose the best ideas that everyone's had and make it into
kind of, but it's thing. Also Algol's so early that it brings in a lot of its own ideas because it starts in 58. Like Algol invents scope. It's so early.
That is, yeah,
which is crazy to consider.
There's probably an episode to do about scope. Especially because
it's hard to do in a way that's not like, and then in 1973, John in Kentucky thought, the scope is eidetic, but also if you consider the inverse relation.
And there's that. The things that make this interesting are the exact same things that make it not interesting at the same time. And it's that, and also that, because that's deep and complex, and that can be interesting, but it's also like just details. Kind of like you said off the top, that's like, I can tell you the details and they're not interesting. The interesting part is how did we get those details?
Yeah, exactly.
The other part is like something that I can't remember now. But it's gone. But yeah, I just feel like emulate is just so indicative of that. I mean, it's on its face. A guy is writing down, I want this to be like this, this, and this. Yeah. And it's not as clear in the language portion of things from what you've laid out. But that, like the operating system part is like I want to be compatible with this and this. And so it's going to be like this. But that, like, from the way you describe the language, it feels very obvious to me that he's writing down, that he is making a language because he's like, I like this part of Lisp. I like this part of APL. And it is so...
I like the class. He literally says, I'm going to do classes like in Simula. I like Simula.
Yeah. He's not like doing a better version of an existing language. It's not like I'm implementing a new version of BASIC with different syntax, which happens a bunch. I'm not making a better version of Algol where I'm trimming the fat on that. A lot of people do that. And it feels, again, it just now strikes me.
It's a synthesis.
Also part of that, like, independent, very decentralized, hacker, individualistic, microcomputer culture of I'm gonna make my own language, taking all the best parts, because I feel like it's there's another just world of academic. Let's iterate this idea. Let's make it a little bit better. Like Lisp is such a good example that I've talked about before, in that everybody thinks of Lisp as Common Lisp or Scheme, and you don't even realize it. But that Lisp is just like this. It was this morphing thing that just a student would work on after a student. There'd be some forked versions, but like just refining this single idea as opposed to.
I want to stop you back at an idea you had that I like that made something click for me. Do you remember my favorite thing about Grace Hopper, besides like that she was just kick ass?
Beautiful personality, yeah.
It's her thing. It's her view on specialization of programming languages.
Yes, which I have some strong feelings about that I don't really want to say I disagree with you, but
I'll fight you. I'll come to Detroit.
No, it's not that I disagree with you per se. It's maybe that I disagree with Grace Hopper, but I don't know if I disagree with Grace Hopper because also I love the idea of DSLs, domain-specific languages.
I'm designing one right now. So yes, the listener, if you don't know what we're talking about, Grace Hopper said that for special purpose applications, there should be special purpose languages. And so that my personal view is that that's one, the right idea. Two, that if you use that viewpoint to look at the history of programming, you'll get some interesting insights that if you're like, oh, people are just trying to make the perfect language, you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets silly, Joe. What you were saying about like the hacker ethic and making languages. What's a better special purpose language than a language that you develop for you to use?
It's going to have your ergonomics, man.
That
It's like whittling your own walking stick.
If we're using the Hopperian view of language development and specialization, isn't that the perfect specialization?
Yeah, and I don't. This is why it's complicated for me, because it's not necessarily that I disagree. It's that, you know what the best language is the best language is not a thing. Firstly, I would like to be clear before
wrong, but yes,
anybody
we can say that.
Okay, yeah.
It's probably
to
like
be
Perl
compatible
5.2.
with the broader community, there is no best. But really, on the flip side, languages that you can write a DSL in, that's now you're cooking.
You mean C?
And I'm not, we talk about Lisp a bunch. I'm really not a Lisp person. I haven't talked very negatively about it before, but one thing that really kills me is its complete lack of syntax. Because I feel like part of the thing that makes a language useful is its ability for a person to use it.
One of
the worst
languages ever developed, and this is a something like a hill I'll die on, is Trac, TRAC by Calvin Moores. It's just that its execution model is such that you can't, like a human can't understand it intuitively. There's something deeply wrong about it. But it was partly developed to make domain-specific languages because there's no syntax. Any character, like any word, any token is something that can be executable. So you can use it to define. You can use it kind of like a meta language to define syntax for your own language.
Yeah.
But you have to do that to make it useful, which makes it useless.
And also then the flip side is, now that you've written your own DSL, you've made a huge, I don't know if I'd really call it a foot gun, but now you've got the issue of anybody who knows. That's good. Oh, have you not heard foot gun?
No, I know what you mean. I haven't heard the term foot gun put that succinctly.
I feel like it's a systems programmer thing a lot, a foot gun, because C is a great language that's full of foot guns.
Well, you will shoot yourself in the foot very quickly if you don't freeze.
But anyhow, you've got if you can write DSLs in a language, then all of a sudden you've got source that somebody who knows the language can't read.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So I'd say that's maybe this is my philosophy about it. Something that always just gets me about almost any topic is the like two variables pulling on each other aspect of so many things. And I feel like this is really one of them. I think there is no right answer. It's an Ouroboros, and it's the two sides that are just a constant flux that you cannot balance as much as you desperately want to balance them. Are how good is it at doing its job, and how hard does that make using it generally, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say Python, not a general purpose language. I've foot gunned myself in it constantly whenever I'm like, oh, I'll just use Python. It can do anything. Wrong.
It's I both feel like I do and don't have feelings about Python.
I have feelings about Python and how it handles serial IO, like specifically upsets me.
Here's we've already discovered why something like emulate comes into existence. We're doing it right now. We're talking about each of the bits of the language that sucks and why we would put the different parts in the different ways. Because I was literally just about to start talking about.
Oh no!
I want a scripting Python, language that is JavaScript without the bad parts. That's basically what I want.
So just semicolons. You just want semicolons.
I like curly braces. Yeah, I like a good curly brace language. I've begun to enjoy become an offsides rule enjoyer. That's your Haskell's. Python is kind of offsides rule too, I guess. I like my curly braces. I can write it however I want, and it's perfectly readable.
All I'm gonna say is that if any language introduced the same sigil system as Perl, I would be an immediate convert. Like, it's just correct, you know.
I won't argue until I've learned Perl. That's a whole conversation we can have on
Don't
Discord.
learn Perl.
which I'm going to have to come up with a follow-up question for this whole thing on the Discord. I'm going to try and keep that up.
Good.
So, I mean, we're getting real long in the tooth here. There's just, I said at the top, this is just an endless source of topics because it's such a broad thing that.
Well, it's really more like, hey, look at this period in time. This is wild. Consider it for a moment, please.
It is. It's a case study in a broader subject.
Yeah, and I will say, since we're closing out, I really like producing these kinds of episodes because they are so... It gives me an excuse to talk about a period or talk about like an idea through something that I don't have a wild amount of information about. Because at the end of the day...
Bob Wallace becomes a lens.
Yeah, I have the lens of Bob Wallace, and I have 2 papers on this really neat software he thought about. Mm-hmm. And those become... I wanted to talk about them because they're neat, but if it was just that, that's not a story. It, like you're saying, it becomes a really good lens to look at this period and examine how the counterculture really, and how changing relationships with power because of microcomputing influence the direction of where microcomputing goes.
Yeah. And
which is neat.
Without these lenses, you end up with doing what you and me do with these episodes largely, which is fun and not necessarily inaccurate, but mostly talking about, from what I understand, this seems like this, right? As far as the whole feeling of the period,
or grab at straws, or you do a lot of, oh, you remember 1975? It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. But with these individuals and these lenses and the things they wrote down, you get to say, no, this is what this, I can point to what this guy was thinking right now about these things.
This is what he was talking
about. It's like the graffiti on the wall of Pompeii of computers, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So don't get too excited about closing out the episode yet.
Okay.
In that, the last thing I have here is the difference between a language and an operating system.
There is
now. We can't rehash the same stuff we've done before. I know I was thinking it through, and first I was going to be like, we really haven't hashed this out as much as one would think. But I feel like with we really did with the RSX episode, so I want to try and not rehash too much of those things. What I really wanted to talk about, because I think it's pretty good and bears talking about, is the command shell or the command language of the operating system as a language. Because I think there's a great way you can attempt to separate operating system from language, right? I think it's pretty easy to think of a broad categorization of an operating system as kind of like a library of things that you can do with the operating system in order to make your computer do stuff. Whereas a language is the parts that let you glue together and make calls to that, right? And that's blurry because what features a language exposes as its library versus what parts does the operating system give you. Some things you get like an Oberon.
A different mechanism than a library execution or binding.
Yeah, or you get emulate. It's memory manager is part of the operating system, and the operating system's memory manager happens to be it's just a common component to both of them.
So does that mean the that's memory where manager is actually the operating system?
But so I have this question that neither of us can answer, but I think we can jaw about it a little bit, is a CLI being different from a language, right? Because when I look back at it, I feel like there's this, like Unix and its history of shells being a language and a scripting system is not, I think, but seems so like unique. And that's a thing about like Bash, is that its command language is strongly, you think of it as it's a language, and also you happen to use it as the command line, right?
I mean, I will say Bash is kind of weird because it's almost like a command interface that happens to be a complete language.
Yeah, it's kind of more the other direction
to use. But I see where you're going.
Well, and also just that we seem to, I don't think it's true, but there seems to be an implicit assumption of a CLI and a language kind of being two different things, where a language really, a language is your interface to the computer, right? It's your interface to, if you're talking about like this sliding scale of what's the operating system, what's the computer, language is your interface to making calls to the operating system to do stuff.
Yeah.
And it's your way of doing stuff with a computer in the same way that your CLI is. And
Counterpoint.
a lot of CLIs are languages.
Yeah. Counterpoint BASIC. Specifically microcomputer BASIC.
I have BASIC on my list because I think I want to let you go. I really do, but it's that you're homing in on what I'm homing in on, which is there's like this implicit feeling that they are different, and yet it kind of starts out them being the same thing, like from the start with your home basics because BASIC's a big one that I have on my list because like time sharing systems. For like a bunch of time sharing systems, BASIC's kind of your interface, especially like early stuff. And I didn't really realize that at all.
The commands are just part of BASIC. They're just extensions in BASIC.
And that you get that very much in microcomputer BASIC. If you've ever run an Apple II, that's one of the weirdest things to deal with. If you've never dealt with something like that before, is you stick your disk drive in there and you're like, okay, now how do I do DOS thing? And it's just that you've got some more BASIC commands now.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wait,
like,
so are you saying
where does that distinction kick in historically?
That Apple DOS is actually just an extension to Microsoft BASIC, which in fact makes Apple DOS a library?
And is it a dynamically shared library? It's added to the memory map at when the DOS is loaded. Is that we go back to the top? I think that is a dynamically loaded library.
Yeah, I think. Well, like that's the thing, right? Is there's not necessarily a separation between a computer's interface and a programming language, or in certain cases, there's not a separation. And with emulate and emulate, the separation is literally one window can take a single one line of code to execute, and another window is a text editor where you put a large program to execute. And that's the distinction.
And that again,
it's really interesting.
With Oberon, Smalltalk, that kind of thing, where the editor, like emulate, the text editor and the command interface are there is no command interface, really, right?
Yeah, it's just the screen.
You can execute bits of your code at any time, and that's how you tell the OS to do stuff on the user's behalf.
It's almost like there's this larger. There has to be like a theory describing this, but it's like there's this larger constellation of ideas, right? That are languages, compilers, or really anything that executes a language, and operating systems, and libraries, and how they're all like the same or different facets of the same kind of code that makes a computer operable, right? There has to be a word to describe that constellation of software. I don't know what it is clearly.
User interface?
Well, is a library a user interface?
Conviviality layer.
Ooh!
And I think I have ended the episode.
Conviviality layer.
This is a good one. There's more I want to talk about that I think I can tie into almost any topic that we have later, but we touched on most of the stuff that I really wanted to carry on about. So, thank you, everyone. I'm going to cut it off just so that you have a reason to come around next time and we don't exhaust all of our topics today, because we would if you let us.
Yeah.
But until next time, thank you, everyone, for joining us on Adjunct of Computing. I will, if you get on the Advent of Computing Discord, I've realized that that's a thing because I never asked Sean. I think it's on the website. I think it's on the landing page you have, and I've just never
put an invite link in the podcast description for the episode. I should do that with all the episodes. Yeah.
I mean, the people are nice. It's a tiny community, as these kind of podcast communities are, but I've committed to trying to, after every one of these episodes, I'm going to engage about the episode on the Discord. So if you're interested in that, seek it out. I hear those kind of things are good for engagement.
They're supposed to be.
I don't know how to drive this thing.
Neither do I.
See you guys, and thanks as always.